What up? Okay, this is the Quincy story. It's kind of the Hawaii. Well, there's a couple of different Hawaii stories, which is weird that Hawaii factors in so heavily into this. But I did live down there for 2 or 3 years, and I got to tell you the backstory um, with Glenn Cannon and my friend Polly. It's like let's call it a um, we had a non-amorous relationship. Let's call it that. Um, like I was, yeah, it was strange, and I there were rules to that relationship that I broke because I didn't know what the rules were until I broke them, and I felt really bad when I did. Anyway, very complicated, total distraction. But the point is that Polly was very close with this guy named Glenn Cannon. Right, Glenn Cannon was in the department I worked. I was a assistant professor, or whatever they, yeah, assistant professor at the University of Hawaii for 2 years and change. And I really looked up to this guy. He was kind of a terrible teacher. I mean, he should have retired 5 or 10 years. He had to go out feet first. I got his office after he died, and they didn't even have an office for me when they hired me. And the other guy, there was another guy who was hired at the same time as me, and he had worked for Disney, and he had all this money, and he showed up there 3 months early and got an apartment and bought a car and did all. And I showed up there and I had nothing. I had no money. I had negative money. I borrowed money from my girlfriend who at the time who didn't even like me and loaned me money. um, but yeah, I was in bad shape. I had no office. They were like, "Where's your syllabus?" And I'm like, "Syllabus? Like, what am I teaching?" They loaded me with 3 classes, and it was bad. But anyway, Polly was my homegirl. She was the only one really there looking out for me, who would like take me out to dinner, take me out to sushi, help me out, come help me clean my house and do my laundry. I mean, we were in this kind of non-amorous weirdo relationship, and I loved her. She was my fairy godmother. I would have probably been fired or been arrested if it wasn't for, or both, if it wasn't for Polly's guidance and love and friendship. But Polly was a denizen of Glenn Cannon. Glenn Cannon was this old school acting teacher who stayed way too long in his position at UH as head of acting, and he he was in every like major TV show, like the original Magnum PI, the original Hawaii Five O, like every major TV show that was shot on Island, he was in it, and he was like the first SAG member on Island and head of that and this, and he like old school. And he had all these great books, and it was really sad. I got his office after he died, but it was really sad. Like they kind of like looted his office. Like he had these Riverside Shakespeare's, which are these big thick books, and they're kind of and like the other professors and the graduate students went in there and just like cherry picked that shit. And I was just like kind of nauseated by it all, like vultures or rats. I mean, and like he was not everybody's cup of tea, but I really liked him. He was salty, had great stories, and he had a Korean wife whose name is escaping me right now. But Polly and I were at the hospital when Glenn went to the hospital, and Polly and I went out for get something to eat, and then we got the call that he had died. And when we went back, his wife had um, had propped him up in the bed, and she had tied a towel around his head in a weird way where you couldn't really see the back of it, but it was tied there so his mouth was closed, and also she had arranged it so that he smiled. So he smiled. So we walked in, and Glenn was sitting up there. His eyes were closed, but he had this big smile on his face, and somehow she had rigged it so that he could do that. And then Polly, of course, lost it in the like completely had a complete meltdown in the hallway. It was so sad, and I thought if there was any purpose, if she got anything out of my relationship with her, it was that moment that I could be a friend to her, because he was really like a father figure to her. Anyway, so that was that, and cut back to the hospital in Nashua. My dad had passed that morning. I had washed his feet. I put $5 in one hand and a key in another. And when my cousin, my aunt's daughter, came by with a bottle of Black Bush Irish whiskey, and I'm there waiting for my sister to show up, and because the Irish, you're not supposed to really leave the body. They don't really do that until, somebody stays with the body until it goes in the ground, generally. So I was waiting for my sister who couldn't make it. She couldn't get a flight or something like that, but I stayed there as long as I could. Until they kicked me out. And I probably should have gone downstairs and waited in the morgue, but I don't know. I didn't, for whatever reason. I said my goodbyes then. And his PT lady, if she came by, she was so nice. She came by for a session with PT with him, and he had died, and I was like, come and see him, and and she just broke down crying, and I was so awkward, man. But cousin came by, a bottle of whiskey, so nice, and then I had done the thing where I'd done the thing that Glenn's wife had done, where she tied the thing. I propped up the bed. It's one of those electric hospital beds. I propped it up, and I got him. I got his mouth closed, and I closed his eyes and propped him up. But I was kind of tugging on his face, trying to get him to smile, and I was looking at his teeth, like how many thousands of dollars did he spend on his mouth? It was like, dental work, terrible, terrible teeth. But I was trying to get him to smile, and it was just so awkward, man. I'm tugging on my dead dad's face, and I can't get him to smile. I'm like, it's just dumb. And so I gave up on that front. But I did make him look really nice, and people were impressed. And then this lady came by, and she was like some sort of, I forget what it is. It's like the coroner, like the person that has to do the intake, that issues the paperwork that then triggers the death certificate. I forget her official title, but it's some kind of coroner's office thing. And she was a very nice lady and came in. And, so I should preface this also. Okay, before this lady came, I was reading my dad's emails, or I don't know when this was, but I was reading some emails or a text message. I don't know what it was, but it was something from my cousin, Quincy's mom, and she said, "Oh, I hope that Quincy gets to play for you over the phone." So like he loved Quincy is like, I think he's like 7 now, 8, but he was 5 or 6 at the time and played really, really excellent Spanish classical guitar. And he had played for my dad a couple times. They had come up to visit, and they played. He brought the guitar and he played. My dad loved it. So apparently, Quincy had played for my dad over the phone, and I called up Quincy's mom and I said, "Listen, AJB just passed. My dad. Those are his initials. He just passed away, and I thought Quincy would like to play for him one last time, right?" And so I she said, "Oh, I'm going to pick him up from school. I have his guitar. I'll call you when we get to some place where he can play." And I was like, "Great, call me back, and I'll put it on speakerphone, and he can play." And then the lady showed up to do the intake. Nice lady, nice coroner, deaf lady, and she's very very nice. And so we start to go through the thing. She asked me questions about his medical history and blah blah blah. And sure enough, in the middle of the interview, uh, uh, Quincy's mom calls, phone rings, and I said, "Listen, I'm really really sorry, but you're gonna have to bear with me and let me just do this." But it was incredibly moving. The piece of music that he played was moving, and I was crying. And the lady, who probably sees more dead people than I ever will, uh, uh, like sees dead people, like she was crying. Like it was intense. And so we said, "Oh, we applaud, say, oh, thank you, Quincy, AJB, love that, thank you so much, you're so talented, blah, 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 thank you." Okay, hang up the phone, go back to the interview. And then the woman asked all the questions, and the craziest thing happened was that I finished the interview, and I turned back, and I look at my dad, and he's smiling. It was just a big, big fat grin on his face. And I said, "Do you see that?" And he said, "Oh yeah, he looks great. Did you do that?" And I couldn't even explain. I was like, "No, I tried to, but I couldn't." So call it whatever you want, um, whether the brain is still alive, or he'd been dead for hours. I don't know. I don't know if he was already gone or still lingering around the room. Souls in the room, physically something. But I saw it with my own eyes, and it rocked my world. So that was the first day. Um, and I'll tell you about day 3, which was Easter, day 7, and day 40 in the next. Thanks very much.